Good morning, pre-algebra. Here is our joke for today. Why did the cookie have to go to the hospital? Had to go to the hospital because it was feeling crummy. That's right. All right, turn to page 418 in your textbooks. Read along while we have the instruction. Give you a moment. Think about the cookie. Hopefully it gets better. Alright, today we were looking at the rate of change. We are still using kind of our same ideas about pointing plots on a graph, looking at the lines, and that's what we're going to be figuring out, like what is the slope of the line, or another word for slope would be your rate of change, so I'm saying R of C. That's our rate of change, so how steep is it, how flat is it, those kinds of things. That's what we're going to be finding. So the way that we find that is we look at our change vertically. So that would be our y's. So I'm going to make another problem. So we have change in, I'm on my own smartboard, so that's why it's a little funky. Change in y's divided by the change in the x's. The x values, because the x values are horizontal and the y are vertical. So change means like finding the difference. So you're doing some subtraction. So here's our first example in our book. It says the graph shows the changes in height from a distance of a small airplane. Find the rate of change from point B to point C. So we're going from B to C. So to find the change, we need to start, where did we end up? So a helpful formula for me when we're looking at finding the change in vertices, like the vertical points, we take the second y and subtract it by the first y and divide it by the second x minus the first x, x1. So if we plug in those numbers, our second y, which means it's at point C, is 2,400 feet. So we've got 2,400. Again, I'm on my own board, that's why it's funky. And then we've got 2,000. That's where we started at for point B. Divide that by 800 minus 400. Okay, and I can already tell that we're looking at 400 over 400, those are zeros, which equals 1. So our rate of change would be 1 foot. So whenever you go up 1 foot, you're also going to the right 1 foot, or horizontally. Okay, let's look at another problem. Looking at the bottom of the page, it says airplanes. Find the rate of change from point E to F in the airplane position. So remember, we've got our formula, y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So we're going from E to F. So we need to find the Fy, which is 2,800, minus the Ey, which is 2,000. Divide that by the x's. So for F, the x is 14. That should be 1,600. That's what it looks like to me. And E is at 1,400. So we're looking at 800 over 200. Which would then simplify down to 4. So now our rate of change is 4. So again, what that means is we have an increase of 4 feet for every 1 foot. So we go up 4 feet for every foot that we go to the right. So again, that's kind of the idea of the fraction. If you see, if we convert it over, we still have the 1 on the bottom. So we go 4 feet up and then 1 foot to the right. That would be our rate of change. Alright, look on over to the next page. Next page, we're still calculating the rate of change, so I'm going to skip example number 2, but let's look at example number 3. Here's something where we can see that our rate of change will be negative. It's not always positive, so we have to be careful on how we set up our equations. So it says the biggest drop in the Kingda Ka roller coaster is described in the table. Find the rate of change and interpret its meaning. So to find the rate of change, we need to pick 2 points. So they give us our chart and they tell us which ones are our x's and our y's. So remember, our equation is y2 minus y1. So we have our y2. I'm going to do, our x's will be 0 and 1. So I'm going to do 268 minus 456 divided by 1 minus 0. Okay. So when I get that, we end up with a negative number. We end up with negative 188 over 1, and we're talking about feet. So what this means is that our slope, our rate of change, actually is decreasing. It's going down. So for every 188 feet that we go down, we're still going to the right, 1 positive.
This goes back here somewhere?
Goes back there, yep. Alright, I think that's enough of the practice we're going to do for today. If you want to look at comparing the rate of change, what that means is you're still calculating your rate of change, but eventually you're going to compare it to a different one. So when you get to there, you may need to ask for some help, but otherwise, work hard. See you in real life.